Hello and welcome to the Low Code podcast. I'm Faraz from iTrack, Global OutSystems Recruitment Specialist. With this podcast, our aim is to increase awareness and appreciation of OutSystems and its impact and benefits to the market. And our early adoption is giving competitive edge to businesses worldwide. During our podcast, myself and my colleague, Sushil Chauhan, will be speaking to IT leaders and OutSystems MVPs on how OutSystems has transformed their businesses and careers. We also hope that by speaking to MVPs on their career journeys, we can inspire developers from all over the world to learn from others who have already been on the path. So let's go. Hello and welcome to the Low Code podcast. In today's episode, our guest is Armando Gomes, OutSystems MVP. Hello, Armando.
Hi, how are you?
Good, yourself?
And hi everyone at listening to this podcast. I'm very good, thank you. And first of all, thank you very much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to
it's a pleasure for
join
us.
yourself.
Great. How's things for you over there in Portugal?
Well, things are, I would like to say, good, but well, unfortunately, with this COVID-19 crisis going on, unfortunately, and with the colder weather, things are getting a bit worse. So let's see how it will move forward.
Yeah, of course. So it'd be good to kind of start with just to find a bit about your background.
Okay.
A bit about Armando and where you've come from.
So I have I always recall, and when I look at my background, you see all that people saying, like you see music producers saying like, oh, they were like 4 years old, they were playing with records or with piano or something like that. And I recall myself like being 8-9 years old and playing with computers. So
nice.
When I growing into the software industry was a kind of, a easy choice to do.
You knew from a young age.
Yeah. So I started younger with, disassembling computers. At the end it would you would have some leftover parts, but it would still work. I don't know how, but it would still work. But then, I grew up. I took a college degree in computer science. I also have a master's degree, and I started working in the industry, let's call it this way, around 2013, so 7 years ago, kind of. And I actually didn't start working with low-code platforms or even with OutSystems. I started working in middleware development with TIBCO technologies. At the time, it was called BusinessWorks. Not sure if they still call it the same way. And then roughly in 2014, so 1.5 years later, one good friend of mine asked me, "Oh, look at this tool. It just, you develop in a visual way." And I used to it, but I was always mocking him like, okay, so you're saying you're developing things, you're just dragging and dropping
things,
balls. That's not real programming,
Sure.
You have to type the words, and
of course.
That's not real programming. But here we are, like 6 years later. I'm now a profound expert developer. At least I have the certification. If I know a lot about the platform or not, that's a different topic. But I have attained those certifications. I luckily had a chance to join them and to be considered one of the OutSystems MVPs. And in 2020, after working for partners, for clients, and even as a freelancer, I decided to launch myself into the business world, let's call it this way, and open my own company. And then this COVID-19 thing just happened. So far, so good.
So far, so good. Great. So basically from what you said, like you said, when you first came across it, you weren't sure. What kind of made you kind of think, okay, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna try it out.
Do you want the politically correct answer, or do you want the real one?
The real one's good. The real one's
okay,
good.
The real one, it was because they would pay me better.
Okay, that's good.
But
you can give both answers if you like. I don't mind.
So I decided to give it a go because I was, when you start working with a technology, it's very easy for you to have a huge growth in such a short amount of time. And then you kind of reach a plateau and then you have to keep growing. If you want to keep growing and so on, you have to change a bit.
Sure.
So, due to some things that were happening in Portugal with some certain banks, I just decided it would be a good move to try something new.
Mm.
Okay, and obviously I had my friend. The friendship part also played
Yeah, of course.
a bit of a role
Yeah,
in the decision. Um, but I decided to give it a go, and okay, let's try something new. Since at the time I was doing I was doing pretty much anything that would required to be done, but
sure.
mostly the focus was in the middleware department. But even the tool for those that don't know how it works, or at least how it worked at the time, it was already a visual development tool. So you
Yeah,
would also, well, it was not orange balls, but you would also drag and drop something into the screen, creating flows. So the transition was easy. Okay,
sure.
so I
Yeah.
just decided, okay, so great chance. Let's learn something new. Of course, they pay me better, so that's also a plus.
Of
But
course, yeah.
it was kind of this, and it was a really smooth transition.
Okay, that's great. So, one thing, reason for the podcast is to create awareness of OutSystems.
Mhm.
So, being an MVP, it'd be good to kind of get your short explanation of what is
Okay,
OutSystems.
okay. So that's a very interesting topic because when you explain what OutSystems is, and I usually don't start explaining what OutSystems is, I try to explain a bit of what low code is. Okay,
Sure.
and when you start to explain to people what low code is and the principles of trying to reduce the time, having a graphical way of development, you will see, and especially from people who have been programming, let's call it high coding, for a
Yeah.
long time, they will say to you the same thing I said to my friend, like, you're just dragging and dropping balls. That's not programming.
Yeah.
Like,
We
that's
hear
not
it all the
real
time.
programming.
Yeah.
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 So um, for those of you who don't often that don't know, the way I like to explain what low-code platforms and what OutSystems is applying the 80-20 rule to software development. Okay. So what these guys figured out and what the low-code platforms aim to figure out is what is the 20% of functionality that you use that you can use or that you only use to build 80% of what you want to deliver. Okay.
Sure.
And then that's what they give to you. You have 20% of the functionality that you need from a development perspective. And with that, you can build the 80%. Okay.
Sure.
This does not mean that if there's a requirement that would go beyond those 20%, you can extend the platform, you can do your own custom development, therefore the low code and not the no code. And then we can talk a bit about about the differences.
Sure.
But it's so rare nowadays with the amount of things people are putting publicly available for you to use in your applications. It's so rare for you to have to develop that if you start now using the OutSystems platform, you will probably believe this is more like a no-code platform than
Mm.
a low-code platform.
Sure. Okay. Good to know. And in regards to obviously developers who, we come across many developers
Mhm.
who say the same thing that you
Yeah,
said. They say, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do it," and
that's not real
um,
programming.
yeah, yeah, I don't want to decrease my skill set, or
Yeah,
But I think what we find is these guys end up being unique in the market as well, by learning that skill set.
yeah, but that's that is a very interesting point, because people think that if you embrace a technology such like OutSystems, you are somewhat limiting yourself to the opportunities that you might have in the future. Okay,
Sure,
for me, that is a wrong perspective. Okay, because the more you grow, okay, or the more experience you gather, what makes the difference is the value that you add to the business. Okay,
Sure.
you need to understand how things work. Okay,
Sure.
and then it's a matter of learning the syntax of Java or C Sharp or C++. In the end, it's just a language. Okay,
Sure.
because when you change language, there are some principles, especially from the business side, that you'll keep to that you'll be able to reuse them. Okay,
Yeah.
so obviously there's no, of course there's a risk. Like if you have 10 years of experience in OutSystems and then suddenly you have to move to a Java position or a C Sharp position, of course there's a difference. Okay,
Yeah. Of
I'm
course.
not going to say there's not a difference, because
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
difference, and then probably no one is going to give you like a senior C Sharp developer or a tech lead, even maybe a tech lead position,
Yeah.
even if you don't have the grasps of the technical development part of, or how, let's say, how to design a C Sharp application, something like that. Uh, but obviously, with the experience that you have and with the business and the way you understand how applications should work, that will definitely benefit you and will reduce the time to market, let's call it this way,
Sure.
that you want, that you need in order to reach the same point in another technology.
Sure. Sure. And without systems, obviously, it was 2018. You became an MVP.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? What did you have to? How was it? How did it happen? Did you have to fill certain criteria to,
Okay.
or did they
So
reach out to you? Or
okay. So back in the days, nowadays it's not the same. It's not the same.
sure,
But you could either apply or you could nominate. Okay,
okay,
nowadays it's by nomination only in certain times of the year.
sure,
But back in the day, the same. There was this. This was the only difference. Okay, the way you could apply to the program.
yeah,
But the major points still remain, which is, in order for you to be considered an MVP, you need to have visible contributions to the community,
sure,
and they split in four major branches of contribution. First one is if you create events, if you organize events for the community, if you try to grow the community. Then you have Forge components.
hmm
Forge components, creating content like blog posts, tutorials, and so on. And
sure,
finally, if you are actively helping people in the forums, engaging with the community and trying to solve their problems.
sure,
So when I decided to join the program, and then when I was invited to do so, I was focusing more on content creation, as well as some components that I was building at the time,
yeah,
working with in several projects. There are always those pieces of code that you know that, okay, I will probably reuse this in the future. So even if I have to change a bit just to make it a bit more generic, and then suddenly you realize, okay, so if I use this more than once, maybe some people will also use it, right? So I decided to release a bunch of Forge components, and that was pretty much how I got into the MVP program. Of course,
sure,
besides this, there are all other requirements,
yeah,
like having at least the professional certification.
of course, yeah,
Um, at the time, I already had the expert one, so
mm,
that was a non-issue. But if anyone in case is interested, OutSystems has that information publicly available,
yeah, sure, of
and very easily written, so you can always use that as a reference.
course, cool. And we find obviously UK is a lot different to
Yeah,
Portugal. There's a lot less people who know art systems,
yeah,
or if we speak to developers, or sometimes even customers, we have to kind of they'll go to our website, then they'll
yeah,
go to the art systems website and ask us what's this. It's quite different,
yeah,
obviously,
yeah, yeah.
in Portugal. When do you think kind of was, because obviously art systems has been around for a very long time, but
Yes.
not everybody knows this. They come across more like the new kids on the block.
True.
So
And even and sorry to interrupt you, even from a Portuguese standpoint, And what I'm about to say has no scientific evidence behind it.
Sure,
So it's just a feel, you know,
sure,
a
sure.
feeling. So there are 2 points in which OutSystems gets a knowledge in Portugal. Okay,
Mm,
so when I started working with OutSystems, even in 2014,
mm,
it was not something well known. Okay, at
sure.
least I would talk to my colleagues, and I would still have a lot of responses like, "So OutSystems, what is that?"
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
would
yeah,
say, "Oh,
yeah,
it's a technology, a low code platform. It was built in Portugal." And people, "Oh, like really? Oh, okay."
yeah,
And that was
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Then around 2017, 2016, inside the IT market of Portugal,
Mm,
there was this awareness. The awareness was raised,
sure,
and the events became bigger. They had
sure.
Next Step in
Next step,
Portugal.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I could see that the events were growing, more people were attending because businesses started to understand the benefits and the drawbacks, of course, of
sure,
using a platform, but obviously they feel and they still feel that the benefits completely overcome the drawbacks.
sure.
It's a great choice, so they keep investing in it. And then I think is around, I'm not sure if it was in 2018 or 2019, so my memory may be failing, but OutSystems got an investment for 380 million, something like
Yeah,
that. That made them a unicorn company with
sure.
over 1 billion or 1,000 millions, depend
Yeah,
or where you live, valuation. And then suddenly in Portugal, that was not a common occurrence. So
mm,
you had like probably 2 or 3 companies from the software area, so it became a big thing.
of
Okay,
course, yeah.
even people from outside of the IT world started to acknowledge the
Recognize,
existence
yeah,
of the technology, and more often than not, let's say if I talk with my accountant and just say, "Oh, I work with OutSystems," he'll say, "Oh, I've heard about that," and
yeah,
explain me better and something like that. At least the name gained some traction
yeah, sure,
and created more awareness.
sure. So how do you think, OutSystems has changed the landscape for customers?
For me, the reason or in the way it benefits more the customers, it's the pure application of this 80/20 rule.
Sure.
Okay. Since you just use 20% of the component of the development capabilities, let's call it this way,
Mm,
development features, to reach 80% of what you need, most of the times businesses may be happy with those 80%. So you have a benefit, right? You can build faster. You have lots of things already made. You have even the UI,
yeah,
the interfaces, templates, themes. You have everything that you can use to build an application fast. Okay,
sure,
and they say it's like 6 times faster. I don't know because I haven't made the comparison. I can
sure.
say that it's faster. If it's
Yeah,
6 times or
yeah.
not, I have no idea.
Okay,
But from a business perspective, and even with the way things change, I think it's a tool that enables the key users and the end users of the applications to really have a voice, and most importantly, they can see things changing.
sure,
Because when I was working with, and now going a bit back in the
sure.
past, when I was before working with OutSystems, I saw how long things took for it to change, right?
Yeah,
So a user would request something, then we would have to open a change request, and then wait for some approval, then do an
yeah,
estimate, and then like 3 or 4 months later, something close, and
yes,
maybe it's not even the right thing
yeah,
would appear to the end user, but now sometimes it's just easier to go there and do the switch or implement it,
sure.
and the end user sees that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's similar with when I was looking at this year's next step, and they were showing the new builders.
Yeah,
Where the end user had a request, and then they did the workflow builder
yeah,
to show how fast
yeah.
you can do
Because
that.
that is that also, or let me say this differently. The growth of OutSystems is a good thing, but at the same time, it poses some challenges. And
Mm,
you, as you were saying, it poses for you and for places where the market is not as developed.
sure.
This is a huge challenge
Yeah.
because you don't have people that have knowledge of the platform. Most of the people haven't even heard about the technology,
Yes.
right?
Correct. Yes.
So,
Yes.
like OutSystems, what's that? So since you have the needs and the businesses when they invest in the platform, because it's an investment,
Yes. Of
okay,
course.
and it needs to be a thoughtful investment.
Yeah. Sure.
um, you need to be able to deliver fast,
Mm,
right?
mm.
Because if you don't deliver fast, why are you paying for it, right?
Of course. Yeah.
So what happens is that with the growth, you'll have a lot more customers,
Mm.
okay? But your worker base does not grow at the same time
Yeah.
as
Of course.
the customers grow,
Yeah.
right? So you need to bring more people in.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't have the time to properly train and grow that people. Okay,
Sure.
so one way to overcome that is to create ways for them to be productive faster,
Sure.
and that's where the builders come from.
Yeah.
Okay, the builders aim to, or at least from my perspective,
Mm.
the builders aim to bridge the gap between what they used to call citizen developers,
Yeah.
which I see more and more often, to, well, I don't want to call real developers, but
Yeah.
let's call it developers with experience and proper background.
Yeah.
So by providing these tools, they can bridge the gap and hopefully make it easier for newcomers to come
Mm.
into the platform and develop their skills. And
Sure.
of course, grow the business of their customers.
Of course, of course. So, yeah, speaking about the workflow builders, I know obviously as an MVP, you probably know about certain things that you're not allowed to discuss that will be
Yes.
released later. But from what is kind of known, what other kind of, key things do you think really makes the platform different and, successful?
That's a very interesting question because the things I'm not supposed to talk about.
Are they the ones?
No, no, actually, no, actually, no. I'm not. I was going to say that I'm not that involved in the builders. Okay,
Okay,
I'm involved in other initiatives that,
sure.
unfortunately, I would love to talk about, but I
Okay.
can't. And
Maybe we'll get you on again in 6 months' time.
yes, maybe in 6 months, yeah. Somewhere down the road we
Yeah,
can
of
discuss
course.
that. I will
Of
let you
course.
know.
Yeah, of course.
But from the builders, I think it's the easiness that they can give someone
Mm.
to create something already that works.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and again, from what I saw from the builders, I also believe they follow very closely this principle of just having a small subset of things to deliver a full experience, like
Sure.
the 2080 rule, right? So you create something that would possibly cater to your needs, and suddenly you have something that just works.
Mhm.
Obviously, depending on your needs, you might need to change a bit, but
Sure.
changing 5% is really different from just creating it from scratch.
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
so
Yeah.
I think, again, joining it all together, the growth of OutSystems, the lack of or the shortage of the developers talent, or the shortage of developers, not really the talent, but the developers, all these things together lead to the creation of these tools. And then you have a kind of a loop in which you have one thing that misses, so you need to how do I say this? You need to make it up with the builders,
Sure.
so the builders create value to the business, and then other businesses that are not involved will probably see that as a benefit and will try to use it. And then suddenly you need more developers, and they
Yeah,
need
yeah,
to build
yeah.
to have more builders, and we are in an infinite loop,
Yeah, of course.
which is a good thing after all.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, and obviously going to, like you said in the beginning, you started your own business,
Yeah,
Volitional Software,
yeah,
in January this year.
yeah.
So how has it been, starting a company, in the year we're having, for you?
Yeah, I started the company in January,
Mm.
so we heard the news, but honestly, I don't think anyone, especially in Portugal, were expecting this to.
To be the way it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So since the start, and I decided to create something sustainable. Okay,
Yeah.
having worked at big consultancy firms, I knew the good things they have. I also knew the bad things they have. But in the end, and especially when dealing with low-code platforms and without systems, there's only so much you can do by yourself.
Sure.
Okay, I was working as a freelancer. I would see that,
Mm.
right? So I had to do the next step, and not really go the event, but I had to create my company,
Mm.
having people with me, so we can then together start building bigger things. Okay,
Sure.
and the goal here is, and what I aim to have is a company where you like to work. Okay,
Sure.
I know this sounds like a bunch of bullshit, but it really is, because I see, even for myself. I know when I'm relaxed, when you are kind of in control of things, where
Mm.
the environment is good, when everyone is working towards the same goal. It's way better. It's
Sure.
even from a mental health perspective,
Yeah.
and now with
That's more important than
everybody
anything right now.
almost
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So I really like to create a place where people feel welcome, where people feel good, in which, okay, you wake up in the morning and you don't dread to go to work, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the objective from a company as a whole. Obviously, I was expecting, when I created the company, of course, I was expecting for us to have reached a bigger position,
Sure.
or have a different growth than what we have now,
Yeah.
although now it's still very good. But obviously, with the
Yeah.
COVID-19, lots of businesses holding back on some of their
Cutting down.
plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we also had to um, refrain a bit from our expected growth,
Sure.
without risking anything. And
Sure.
most important, that's the most important thing. We want to be sustainable, and we want to be, well, profitable, of course.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there was no point.
No point. Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
right. So, but we want to be sustainable, and we want to grow in a controlled way.
Sure. Do you think maybe the one thing obviously with the pandemic is a lot more businesses and customers are open to remote working?
So I hope so. I hope so. I know there are some jobs that it's difficult.
Mm.
Okay. But even before the pandemic hit us hard, I was already working from home.
Okay.
And I'm a profound apologist of working from home, because I don't live in Lisbon. I live in Setúbal.
Yeah.
Most of the IT jobs are in Lisbon.
Lisbon. Yeah.
So if I have to, for instance, if I have to go to an office job in Lisbon, if I have to go, or when I had to go to an office job in Lisbon, we are talking about, let's say, in a good day, depending on the location in Lisbon, it could be 1 hour, a commute of 1 hour
Yeah.
each way. Okay. The things I like to say to people is, if you do the math, okay, at the end of a week, okay, so 5 days, five working
Yeah.
days, you have 10 hours, okay. At the end of a month, okay, you have 40 hours. It's a whole
Whole
work
week of
week.
traveling. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And at the end of the year, assuming that you take 1 month of vacations, you have 440 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Just imagine what you can do with that time.
In that time. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Obviously, I do understand that for some people it's not easy,
Yeah.
depending on where they live. Like they could be living in a busy area, in which during the day they are not able to get the required quietness
Sure.
for them to work, or they might have kids at
Kids
home that
running
don't
around.
let
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So although I do believe that it's a good thing, I also understand the challenges for some people. And Obviously, some people just prefer to go to the office,
Yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a perfectly understandable decision. But as our company, our goal is to have people remote. Okay,
Sure.
I don't think there's any reason whatsoever for us to have the need to get together, right?
Sure.
Because the same way we are talking here, right, we are having this
Exactly.
amazing
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
We can have this to discuss requirements, we can have this to discuss an implementation, we can have this to discuss to have a code review session.
Yeah.
So there's not really a need, besides of course the human factor, the fact
Yeah. Of
that you
course.
just
Yeah.
you just, oh, let's drink a coffee, and you go to the
Yeah.
coffee machine, something
Yeah.
like that, you just
Yeah.
enjoy a bit. But other than that, I really believe, especially in software engineering and
Sure.
software development
Yeah.
industry, working from home, and this pandemic will potentiate that, will lead to more remote jobs.
Yeah. I think from our perspective, we have a lot of customers who before wanted people in the office,
Yeah,
now open to remote,
yeah,
which obviously helps, especially with a technology like OutSystems, where you guys are very rare breed to find at times.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When a role is open to remote,
Yeah,
it's a lot more. There's a better chance of finding someone
yeah,
who's, as long as they can work your time zone.
yeah,
It's
yeah, of
it's much
course.
better.
Of course. Myself, luckily, I'm able to have regular working hours despite working with multiple time zones.
Great.
Of course, sometimes you need either to wake up earlier or just need to finish up later.
Sure.
Uh, of course, right? You still need to deliver. You need
Yeah. Of
to
course.
meet with people.
Yeah.
But luckily, I've had that. Remote work for me also, and from a business owner perspective, also has the advantage of costs.
Yeah. Of
Okay,
course.
like if your team or if your company has 100 people, but most of the times you have like 10 or 15 people in the office at once, there's no point in investing an office for 100
Of
people, right?
course. Yeah.
Okay, so from a cost perspective, I know this is a very simplistic approach, but from a cost perspective, I think it's a really good thing.
Sure.
And luckily, again, I hope businesses understand the benefits and just don't think like, just because we are not seeing the employees, we just assume they are not doing anything.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. So, going back to obviously without systems, you've been there, you've been using it since the time when
2014,
a
yeah,
lot of people didn't know about it.
yeah.
So how do you see the long-term future? Where do you see things going with low code and out systems?
So I believe, okay, so that's a very tricky question. Not because there's something I should not say, okay, but because if I knew the future, I would probably be rich by now.
Yeah, yeah, true. Yeah. That's true.
But what I see is that you will have market for all kinds of development. Okay,
Sure.
you'll still have the market for high code development, in which you're aiming at something very specific, high performant, things like that. Okay, there will be and there will always be that market. Okay, I
Yeah,
hope I'm not wrong, but
yeah,
statistically speaking, it's very likely that it will stay that way.
sure.
Then you have the low code tools and you have the no code tools. Okay, just for those who are listening to us and don't know the difference between low code and no code, the difference is that in low code you can extend with your development. With no code, you just have that set of functionality and that's it.
Yeah,
Okay, you cannot extend beyond that.
sure.
So what I see happening, or what I foresee, is that low code and no code will somewhat share a piece of the market. Okay, because as soon as low code tools grow and create more and more functionality, they will slowly move towards the no code area.
Sure.
Okay. And then you'll have the no-code tools, which I expect to understand what are the main things used in the low-code department and try to implement that in their own offering. Okay,
Sure.
so we'll see a kind of going back and forth between these two aspects with the iCode
Sure.
development, Java, C Sharp, C++,
Yeah.
keeping going strong.
Yeah. Okay. So the final thing I'd probably like to end on is, what would kind of be your message to developers who were in your situation 6 years ago, who thought, I don't want to do this. I don't want to give it
Nah,
a go.
okay. So today it's easier. So you don't have to. I don't think it's a wrong choice. Okay. I would say I'm not going to say like Lewis Hamilton that you can do it, kids. Of course you
Yeah,
can.
7-time champion. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Although I'm a bit of a Sebastian Vettel fan, but
Are you
the guy.
okay?
But Lewis Hamilton is great. Probably the greatest of.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, I'd
I'm not
agree.
sure if all time, but at least from this era, I don't think anyone can argue against that. But getting back to the
Yeah,
getting back to the
sure.
question,
I think if
um,
we talk about Formula One, we'll be here for another hour.
yeah, we could probably stay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So today it's a easier choice, okay, and don't be afraid of trying something new, okay, and don't have the feeling that if you are learning a technology which is a kind of a closed technology, a very specific, almost a niche market technology, don't be afraid of doing that investment, because even if you have to change technologies in the future, everything you learned using OutSystems or any other technology whatsoever, it will be of some good use.
valuable.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
like nowadays, if I had to pick with TIBCO Business Works, I would probably have to spend a lot of time learning how the tool works.
Sure.
But the principles that I use, the way we learn how to build things, how things should be built, that still remains.
Sure.
Okay. And that is the real value that you can get as a developer, um, that you can get to your businesses. As I like to say, the difference between a good developer and a great developer is that the great developer understands business,
Sure.
okay? And business is completely technology independent.
Great. Good. Well, thanks for for joining
My
us.
pleasure. Thank you for
It
inviting me.
was great to have you. And yeah, maybe we can catch up again in 6 months'
In a
time.
few months, yeah.
Yeah, when there's
We
more
can
things
discuss
to,
a bit
yeah,
more.
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, hopefully your business keeps growing,
Hopefully,
even
yeah.
with whatever is going on at the moment in the world.
Yeah, hopefully when we meet again, all of this will be sorted out.
Exactly.
If we can have this sorted out in 6 months' time, I would be really happy.
It'd be great. Yeah, we could maybe do a podcast face to face one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, that would be it.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Armando.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Low Code Podcast, hosted by iTrack, Global OutSystems Recruitment Specialist. Be sure to subscribe and see you next time.